Let's first explain what a bariatric surgery is.
Bariatric really is just the medicine of weight loss. So when we say bariatric surgery, we're talking about a surgical treatment for weight loss. Underneath the bariatric surgery umbrella, there's actually quite a bit of surgeries. Gastric sleeve is removing about 70% of the stomach. But it's not rerouting any of the intestines or anatomical changes to the digestive tract. It's just removing that portion of the stomach. So that's not a surgery that can be reversed. The stomach has been removed from the body, so can't go back in. Gastric bypass is the other one that has been around probably the longest. It reduces the stomach size to like a small chicken egg, and there is some rerouting of the intestines. The surgeon would go down and make an incision in the small intestine and then connect that up to that small pouch, and it bypasses the larger part of the stomach and the upper part of the small intestine. So technically that is a surgery that could be reversed because it's all still there. It's just being reattached in different places. The third one that isn't really offered anymore, I mean, you might find a surgeon that does it, but typically not, is the gastric band. There are a lot of bands being placed, especially the early 2000s, but those did cause a lot of trouble. Band might slip or erode. Patients had to go in and get a band fill. So this was this little band that would go on the top of the stomach, and then it had like a port that was like right under the skin of the abdomen, and they would put a syringe with saline solution in the port, and it would go and tighten the band. So we would go in for a band fill, meaning giving them more restriction, or if it was too tight, they would get it out. And so there's like a lot of maintenance involved with going in and out to get your band filled or taking some fluid out of the band. There's also duodenal switch. So a DS, it's almost like a sleeve and a bypass kind of combined in a way. And then there's also one that's called a SIPS or a SADI. These are all the acronyms once again. So we have sleeve, gastric bypass, which is also called Roux-en-Y, DS, and a SADI. There's a lot.
Oh, I had no idea there were so many.
You're listening to the GLP-1 Studio Podcast.
If you've had a bad experience with a dietitian, or you've heard of someone having a bad experience with a dietitian, Steph Wagner is not that dietitian. Stephanie Wagner goes by the Bariatric Food Coach. She is a registered dietitian nutritionist, and she is the author of Best Fork Forward, Everyday Dinners After Weight Loss Surgery. And I am obsessed. She literally cooked every single recipe in this book and took those pictures herself. Get ready to learn all about the different types of bariatric surgeries, obesity as a disease, and some nice hydration tips. Steph is probably the sweetest person I have ever met, and I'm sure that you will agree after this interview. Stick around to the end for some important announcements, and enjoy. You are the Bariatric Food Coach. What does that mean?
It's a good question. It does feel like a little bit of a gray area. So I am a registered dietitian, because anyone could be a food coach. But I found when I created websites and emails, turns out not everyone knows what a dietitian is or the difference between a dietitian and nutritionist. So I was with a friend at a coffee shop, and we had this conversation when I was trying to figure out a business name. And I was trying to use RD in the name, and he was like, no one knows what that is. And so we went around the coffee shop and asked everybody there, do you know what an RD is? Do you know what a dietitian is? And it was really eye-opening because nobody there knew. So I purposely in my branding wanted to make sure it was still something people understood, like, oh, this is someone that can help me with food. But I'm a dietitian, and I specialize in bariatric surgery. So that's what my version of Bariatric Food Coach is.
I love that you went around asking everyone in the coffee shop. That's adorable.
Do you know, it was really fascinating because, people were like, R&D, research and development. I'm like, that's a good answer. But when you're so much in the world, I mean, that happens with medical providers, right? There's so many acronyms. I mean, that's the same thing with politics. Like there's acronyms, there's organizations, there's, the ADA and the AKA, and you're like, how am I supposed to keep up with this? So it is really helpful when we can just kind of like be really clear, like, what do you do?
I interview people with all of these titles, and I have no idea what any of them mean. They look impressive. They look impressive, but I have no idea what it means. There's this long trail of acronyms, and I'm like, wow, they've done stuff.
They've done the things. What those things are, no one knows.
So you help people who have had bariatric surgery figure out how to get the nutrition that they need because their stomachs are smaller and malnutrition is a real problem.
You got it. Yeah, it's like, how do we make food enjoyable and exciting? Even like someone that's preparing for a bariatric procedure, you get a lot of information about a pre-op diet, which is a diet you go on in preparation. It shrinks the size of the liver and it makes for a safer surgery. So obviously, when you have that diet ahead of you, that's what's on your mind. And then you go through a post-op healing diet. So now you're on a liquid and then
Wow.
a pureed soft protein because you're healing from the surgery itself. So you're so focused on that. I mean, that's a good 2, maybe 3 months of your life that's really interrupted in your food world. But I really like to, support someone through that season, but really focus in on what does everyday life look like after that? Because sometimes it feels like you get released to, now you're just on a bariatric regular diet. And it's like, okay, but what is that? And as it turns out, it overlaps quite a bit with GLP-1 medications because whether it's a medication or a surgery, these are treatments for obesity. So the food, the nutrition, there's some differences, but there's a ton of similarities. So I do have patients that are utilizing medication, but the recipes, the food, the habits, it's the same because these therapies are ways to help you stick with these things long term, not just eat less, work out harder, which doesn't get us anywhere.
Our conversation is about to just take off. You've just got my brain going in 1,000 different directions. Let me start with when I was in college, I did not know what I wanted to be. I changed my major 9 times. And at one point, I was taking courses to become a nutritionist because they didn't have a course to become a dietitian. Being a dietitian, it's a lot more medical based, right?
I think that's a great point. And what I want to say is that there may be nutritionists out there that are more educated than I am. You could have someone that's a PhD. You could have someone that is deep in research on nutrition. They could be public health nutrition. It could be food science nutrition. Someone could be much more educated than I am with a master's and a bachelor's. Someone could have a PhD in terms of levels that we rank of education. But the difficulty with nutritionists is that it's not a regulated term. So if you compare someone that has a high level of nutrition, and then somebody that took a 6-week course online, it just it muddies the waters to know the expertise of the person using that title. So it's more that registered dietitian is a title that we know they did XYZ to get that credential, just like a registered nurse. They had to pass the boards. They had to do the things. So I like to make that distinction. It's not that you put a dietitian and nutritionist next to each other and one is better than the other. It's that we know what that one had to go through. We just need more information about what the other one went through. Yeah.
And this brings up another point. I am in the process of getting my ACE Health certification to be a health coach. And anyone could say that they're a health coach.
You got it.
You don't have to be certified.
Correct.
So this is a really good example
Absolutely.
of how that works.
Right. Same thing with food coach. That's not a regulated term. Someone else could have a website called Bariatric Food Coach, and they would be legally allowed to do that because there's nothing wrong with that. Someone can't go say, I'm bariatric registered dietitian. They have to have the credentials to do that. So I think it's just a word to say, whoever you're getting information from, you do need to dig deeper and just see what is the background. They may very well have a great background.
Right.
But sometimes it takes more digging.
So I did not go through with becoming a nutritionist, not necessarily because it wasn't going to make me a certified dietitian, but because I was overweight. My whole life, I've been just bouncing back and forth between overweight and then losing weight, just like so many of us out there. And I felt like, how could someone want my help if I can't help myself? Clearly, I could not help myself. And so that was when I decided to turn course and get a communications degree, because at this point I'm like, I just need something so I can get out of here.
For 9 times.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
thank you for sharing that, though. I can relate to that very personally. So I was probably 45, 50 pounds heavier than I am in my current body when I was going through a bachelor's and a master's program. So I felt the same way, like, well, who is going to come to me if I can't get this figured out myself? So I think that that is a very common scenario, even in this profession. Like, okay, well, if I'm the one that's supposed to have it together, right, then I need to have it together. I think it's also a common conversation within this professional group. Like I just got back from FNCE is the name, another acronym is the name of our big national conference. So thousands and thousands of dietitians, and there's tons of fun stickers, right? We're in like the sticker era, and one of my favorite stickers was one that said, "My body is the least interesting thing about me." And I thought that was awesome. And it's like, you know how many dietitians walked away with that sticker? Because it's like, sometimes we need that reminder, like, my body's not my business card. My body's the least interesting thing about me. And like, you could just line up 10 dietitians. Does their body have anything to do with what they're knowledgeable in? But to your point, like, that's part of the stigma, which I'm sure we'll get into all of that. And one real quick story. When I think it was my first job out of graduate school working in a bariatric surgery clinic, I was in Oklahoma, and there's this, good old boy, cowboy coming in with his wife, and I was training. So there was a dietitian that was training me, and then I was sitting next to this patient, and he turned to me and he said, "I personally like a lot more meat on the bones like her." And pointed to me. It was both funny and so inappropriate and shocking and like, okay. And the thing that I was worried about is actually true. This person is judging me based on my body.
No, I'm so sorry.
Well, it's part of the experience. Like, how many stories do we all have? So it's part of the shared experience of like, yep, me too.
Oh, yeah. I went to a diabetic nutrition course when someone close to me was diagnosed with diabetes. I was going for support. And when we left, they made the comment, why would I listen to them when they clearly aren't able to take care of themselves?
Hmm.
And part of that was being frustrated because when you go to those courses, they say, don't eat this, don't
Yep.
eat that, don't
Yes.
eat this, don't eat that,
Yep.
portion size by fist.
Yes.
There's not a whole lot of positivity. There's not positive reinforcement. There's
Yeah.
not, this can help you. And this is how, like you said, you can make food fun
Yeah.
so that you're not miserable when you eat.
Absolutely. That's something I've been working through that even just mentally. And so, bring me your thoughts and feedback. We all get better together, right? I've been thinking lately, if in the bariatric surgery world, for example, it's a very prescriptive diet for that time I mentioned, the pre-op prescriptive, post-op prescriptive. And so it's so much like, here's your piece of paper. It's black and white. This is your yeses. These are your nos. Just do it. And in some ways, it's like, yes, during that time, that is true. But at what point in this process do we start moving from a session, with the patient that's very education based on like, you have to do this to heal? At what point do we switch over to the counseling side, which is really what this is? Motivational interviewing it's a strategy. It's not just for dietitians, but it's a strategy when you're working with someone that you're asking really open-ended questions and you're guiding them to identify what their goals are. So you're coming alongside them, you're asking questions to help them get to what ultimately they want to be doing. And there's a ton, this is studied heavily. If someone comes to the goal that they want for themselves, they are more likely to reach the goal because it was theirs, compared to I give you a piece of paper and I'm like, Amanda, these are your goals. It's like, okay, cool. Like you just told me what to do and gave me these goals. So motivational interviewing is not something that a lot of professionals get in their traditional education. You have to go get continued education. You have to keep working on it. You have to go to workshops. You have to keep trying. So at what point do we go from this really specific prescriptive diet to heal from a surgery to more of this motivational interviewing, counseling, long-term health coach strategy, right?
It's so interesting that you brought this up because I am in the process of reading the motivational interview.
Good for you.
And
Yeah,
it's so interesting. It's such a good book. And it makes sense. When you don't want to change something, it is impossible to convince someone to change. It is just impossible. They need to come to that conclusion themselves, especially when it comes to something as personal as diet. There's so much tied into food with emotions, family, memories, culture. It is not just nutrition or junk food. There's so much meaning behind it. I love that you do motivational interviewing
I love it.
because I think it's the cornerstone of good counseling.
The more you do it, you'll have to come back around and tell me. The more you learn and experience it, tell me what you think. But the more I do it, the more amazed I am when it's so effective. Like, really, we're all, myself included, I am the first person to say I am not natural at being a listener. I want to solve it for you. I want to tell you, oh, well, this is what you should do. I would love to give you advice, but that is not helping anybody at the end of the day. If it comes to a point where like, yes, I think I could provide additional education for you on how to, control your hunger more or manage your symptoms or stay hydrated. Like obviously, if I feel like, yes, I have education information, that's what I'm here to do. But the more space and pause I give to allow someone else to reflect and think about it, I'm always amazed at the solutions that they identify that make total sense in their daily life that I would never have gotten to because I don't live in their shoes. It's more and more fun the more I use it.
Yeah, I love listening to other people, which is part of why I mean it's the smallest part of why, but it's part of why I started the podcast because I love hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
And when you give them space to express themselves, you learn so much about them.
Yes.
So, motivational interviewing, it's definitely needed when it comes to any sort of counseling. I have a story that I would like to share because it is super relevant to what you do. At a recent family reunion, everyone was introducing themselves because we haven't seen each other in like 2 decades.
Oh, wow.
I don't know half of these people anymore and don't recognize half of them. So we had a microphone. We went around introducing ourselves and what we do. And my parents would not let me get away with not saying that I've started this nonprofit, that I have a podcast, that I have my own business, that I'm writing a book. So they made me talk about it. And I was embarrassed because a lot of people in my personal life have not been super supportive.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of just being scared of GLP-1s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was shocked when two of my family members came up to me afterwards, one of them saying, I think it's wonderful what you're doing. I've lost like over 100 pounds on this medication. It's saved my life, essentially. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I think it's fantastic. The other one saying, I was on this GLP-1 for a year, changed my life, lost 70 pounds. It was fantastic. And I'm waiting for them to tell me that they had some terrible experience. They were in the hospital, that they had to get off of it, that it almost killed them. No, it was too expensive. A $25 coupon was taken away and they couldn't afford $1,200 medication anymore. And the only thing that their insurance would cover was bariatric surgery.
Yep. Let's talk about it.
They got bariatric surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a year. They lost that 70 pounds again because they did gain it back when they came off the medication,
Mm-hmm.
but they are miserable. They
Oh,
said,
no.
when I was on a GLP-1, I could actually eat. Now I have to be constantly concerned about malnutrition. I can barely fit anything in my stomach. Food is just a miserable topic. I wish I could have
Mm.
stayed on the medication. And I'm so glad that I can ask you what your
Yeah.
thoughts are.
Yeah. If that person was sitting in my office, I would be asking a lot more questions. Chances are we can improve their symptoms. You should not have to feel that way and live that way after surgery. So I don't want anyone to think that that's you're trading in a medication to be miserable. So certainly give my information to your family member. If not me, then someone else in my similar role can help rebuild that relationship with food and feel physically better, but also relationally better with food. So there is freedom in your food life after bariatric surgery, and that does happen. There are certainly patients that may regret that they had surgery. Maybe they didn't get the preparation in advance. Maybe they didn't have the support after. There's a lot of changes all at once. But yeah, that is not something that she or he should have to live through for long term. But I think you brought up an interesting point that, so I've been seeing a lot of patients for pre-op bariatric nutrition clearance, and I'm making this number up, but I would say 80-90% of them have previously tried a GLP-1. So you might think, well, why is that? Someone that's tried Wegovy or Zepbound, Ozempic for diabetes, access certainly is a common story. Affordability, maybe it didn't have the results they thought it would have. They just didn't want to keep taking a medication long term. There's several different reasons, but that's been really interesting to me to see that. And then when it comes to the access piece, a lot of times in the insurance world, whatever Medicare covers, we typically see private insurance companies follow that. And Medicare has covered bariatric surgery. I'm not going to know the exact year, but a decade, maybe more than that, something like that. But they don't cover dietitian visits unless you have diabetes or end-stage renal disease. So patients that have coverage for a surgery might have to pay out of pocket for a dietitian. So for the patient that is not feeling well and needs more help getting their symptoms, getting controlled, getting their nutrition needs met, a dietitian who works in this every single day and has answers and help is something that they would have to pay out of pocket. So it is that there's a bill that has not been introduced yet in the new session, but to try to increase access to dietitians. If you're going to pay for bariatric surgery, could we pay for a dietitian also? And that's not just true for bariatric patients. That's true for cancer patients, for heart disease. Heart disease is still our number one cause of death. Heart disease is not covered with a Medicare recipient to see a dietitian. So, kind of connecting that to TROA, the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act, if we can see improved access to medications, that's why we want to see improved access to dietitians come alongside it for stories like you just told me.
I think that it is a prime example of not having the support that they needed in the beginning, afterwards, and throughout, because I'm not sure that it matters if you're on a GLP-1 or not. The journey of weight is a lifetime journey.
Yes.
If you have bariatric surgery, if you're on a GLP-1, if you're just dieting, your entire life is going to be that journey.
Right.
I can see why dietitians need to be covered by Medicaid. It's really sad. This brings me to another point. I actually didn't know that this was a thing until I started getting into the GLP-1 world. I did not know that there were people out there getting multiple surgeries. And since being here, I have met so many people who have had more than one, and then some people who have even had them reversed after two. And I'm wondering how and why that is.
It depends on the situation, certainly, but I do see patients that have revision surgeries. The most common scenario, so there might be some outlier different scenarios, but the most common scenario why I'm meeting with someone for a revision surgery is typically a gastric sleeve patient that is having unresolved reflux issues. A sleeve is a surgery that if someone has GERD, gastric esophageal reflux, then they are typically not advised to have gastric sleeve because that can exacerbate it. That's typically what I see is someone's just can't sleep laying down. They have to sleep in a recliner. It's affecting their everyday life. And insurance is more likely to pay for revision surgery if it's for a medical need like that. So that's typically a revision from a sleeve to a bypass because of that particular instance. There may be other reasons for what we call a revision surgery, but That would be the most common. Otherwise, if it's not a medically required revision, then it would probably have to be paid out of pocket.
Let's first explain what a bariatric surgery is versus a sleeve and what else there is out there, because I don't think we all know.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, interestingly enough, the word bariatric really just is related to weight loss. So, we're just saying bariatric really is just the medicine of weight loss. So, we could, like, as a bariatric dietitian, that could include medical or surgical. So, when we say bariatric surgery, we're talking about a surgical treatment for weight loss. So, underneath the bariatric surgery umbrella, there's actually quite a bit of surgery. So for many years, there was three main ones. So one of those is not really recommended anymore. And since then, a couple more have come forward as great treatment options. So gastric sleeve is one that you probably hear a lot about, and that is removing about 70% of the stomach. But it's not rerouting any of the intestines or anatomical changes to the digestive tract. It's just removing that portion of the stomach. So that's not a surgery that can be reversed. The stomach has been removed from the body, so can't go back in. So that's a sleeve. Gastric bypass is the other one that has been around probably the longest in terms of a safe bariatric surgery. That one is it reduces the stomach size to like a small chicken egg in size. That's like a real rough example. And there is some rerouting of the intestines. The surgeon would go down and make an incision in the small intestine and then connect that up to that small pouch. And it bypasses the larger part of the stomach and the upper part of the small intestine. So technically that is a surgery that could be reversed because it's all still there. It's just being reattached in different places. The third one that isn't really offered anymore, I mean, you might find a surgeon that does it, but typically not, is the gastric band. There are a lot of bands being placed, especially the early 2000s, but those did cause a lot of trouble. A lot of, a band might slip or erode. Patients had to go in and get a band fill. So this was this little band that would go on the top of the stomach, and then it had like a port that was like right under the skin of the abdomen, and they would put a syringe with saline solution in the port, and it would go and tighten the band. So we would go in for a band fill, meaning giving them more restriction, or if it was too tight, they would get it out. And so there's like a lot of maintenance involved with going in and out to get your band filled or taking some fluid out of the band. And there's a lot of complications with that one. So that one doesn't tend to be recommended anymore. There's also duodenal switch. So a DS, it's almost like a sleeve and a bypass kind of combined in a way, and it has a more average weight loss results with that one. And then there's also one that's called a SIPS or a SADI. These are all the acronyms once again. So we have sleeve, gastric bypass, which is also called Roux-en-Y, DS, and a SADI. There's a lot.
Wow. I had no idea there were so many. I thought that gastric bypass was where you had a portion of your stomach removed. So I hope that everyone out there is feeling just as educated as I am right now.
Yeah, so just kind of the journey towards a surgery, the first thing you do if you are interested in getting more information about a bariatric surgery is a seminar at the surgeon's office. A lot of these can be done virtually anymore, but it's either going to the office and they put on a seminar or it's virtual. But in those seminars, that's where like a surgeon would go through like every single thing. And then you kind of decide from there if you're going to book an initial appointment with the doctor. Because it would be really time consuming for a doctor to explain all of these surgeries at every initial visit. So it's also kind of a nice way, like you could go get information and then you don't have to book, or you could book later, but that's typically a standard in the bariatric surgery industry is you can start with a seminar because it is so much to learn. Yeah.
When people get more than one surgery, is it because they have stretched their stomach back out?
It's a great question. No, it is actually incredibly difficult to stretch the stomach. The stomach is 3 thick layers of muscle. So it's not like a balloon that can like stretch out really easily. So it's more likely that someone overate, they're more likely to vomit. then they are like stretch it out. What happens when someone has weight reoccurrence after bariatric surgery and they may feel like they've stretched their stomach out? Typically, it's related to the textures of the foods they're eating or drinking with meals, because with either of these surgeries, but bypass as an example, because we have that small stomach pouch going directly into the small intestine, the gastric emptying, or how fast food moves through the system, is faster. Before surgery, when you have a full-size stomach, there's a small muscle at the bottom of the stomach that kind of opens and closes. It's called a sphincter. That's what a sphincter does. It opens and closes. So whenever you eat a meal, the sphincter closes, keeps the food in the stomach, and is going to churn that food to start breaking it down. That's digestion. And that process starts. So because of the anatomical change, that muscle is no longer going to be keeping the food in there. Even with a sleeve, we see gastric emptying increase. So that means foods that have really soft texture, foods that have more carbohydrate, or drinking with meals or too soon after, because it moves the food through the stomach, you can eat a larger portion and you may be hungry throughout the day. So more grazing, not as much of that portion control, appetite control. So it is like there are some of these really unique habits to bariatric surgery that no one else would ever have to think about. Like I tell that to my patients all the time, like taking these tiny bites and going slowly and not drinking with your meal. Like, of course it's hard. And no one else would have to do it if they didn't have this anatomical change. So when you say someone that might have two surgeries, it's not that they would have two surgeries at the same time. It's that you have one surgery and then maybe it's, revised to a different surgery. So the one I would see more often is if it starts as a sleeve, it may be a revision surgery to a bypass or a DS or a SADE. That's kind of where my mind would go. But typically it could be used as a treatment for weight reoccurrence. But sometimes we see it also because there's other things going on like GERD.
So the people who I've met with who have had to have more than one, there's always a tremendous amount of shame because they'd had a surgery and essentially they feel like a failure because they gained weight again and they had to get another surgery. I swear, I have met so many people who have had a surgery and are on a GLP-1 now because it helps with the food noise. And I believe that these surgeries are supposed to affect your natural GLP-1 so that you have less food noise for the first couple of years after surgery. Is that true?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That experience is typically in the first 12 to 18 months. But yes, in the same way that a GLP-1 medication, GLP, GIP, these are gut hormones that are decreasing appetite, improving satiety, that feeling of being satisfied with a meal. Part of why the research became available to identify that these medications should be researched and created was because what we found in bariatric surgery was like, oh, how can we utilize that in a medication? It's an interesting, obesity care is a really fascinating field because, we really have started with surgical treatment before we started with a medication treatment. We've had medications, phentermine's been around since 1960. And then we had some medications come online in 2012, 2013, Qsymia, Contrave. But really, it's been more since, Saxenda kind of got the party started, and then Wegovy really, kicked it out of the, really kicked it up a notch. So a lot of that's because what we found with the bariatric surgery, especially in the first year, is when that is such a powerful experience. But it is, hormones do kind of regulate. And there's this set point theory. A set point theory would be that your body wants to gravitate to the same set point. So if someone's like, I lose and gain the same 20 pounds, well, it's just because your body wants to send hormones and signals to get you back to your set point. So one of the ideas with bariatric surgery or GLP-1 medication is it's giving you a new set point. So, we can that would be a little bit of a tangent to talk about goal weights, but it's not always helpful to give yourself a goal weight and strive for it, because sometimes you do have to allow your body to kind of let you know where its new set point is going to be. But all that to say, I think GLP-1s after bariatric surgery are a wonderful thing. I have a lot of patients in my online community that are using medications after surgery. And I do feel like the language is starting to change again around shame. And
Yeah.
now it's becoming more normalized. Like, I'm so grateful I have more options. It's not like, oh, that was my last chance. I can't stand it when someone's like, well, this surgery is my last chance. It's like, oh, no one needs that kind of pressure. Let's not
Yeah.
do that to yourself. So I think that as an industry, bariatric surgery is really embracing the medical options and hopefully allowing that to come out with patient care, that we think this is a wonderful thing, not a sign that you failed, but that your treatment was effective and we're going to continue with medication to continue how effective it is.
I think that it's important to say that it is wonderful that there are so many options, and there are people who are ashamed because maybe even a GLP-1 that they were using wasn't working. But I met with Dr. Lindsay Ogle, who introduced us. I forgot she introduced us.
You did?
When I interviewed her, for anyone listening, she is an obesity specialist. She said, there are so many other options. You can mix medications if you need to. There are other GLP-1 options. There are more coming out. There's surgery. Surgery can be mixed with medication. I mean, the door is open to all of
Yes.
the possibilities. So it is not anyone's last chance to lose
Yes.
weight.
Right. And if we really were to view obesity as a disease, which I think it's a really hard mindset shift, especially in our culture.
Hmm.
But if we really viewed it as a disease and we viewed bariatric surgery or medications as treatments, then it's not about what the patient did. It's about, well, how the treatment performed. Well, was it an effective treatment? Not, did you pass or fail? Because I think if we were to compare other, chronic diseases and their treatment options, we don't say, well, this chemotherapy, you failed it. No, it wasn't an effective treatment. We need to keep looking at our other options. So I think it's also like we're getting there. I think we're getting there as far as changing our mindset and the way we talk about things. I've seen it in my 15 years. Like we are making progress. Is it fast? No. Is culture helping us? No. But we are getting there, that this isn't about how you're performing. It's about if this approach is this working for you? And if the answer is no, then let's keep going. Let's find out what else there is.
I'm going to quote that in the article that I write about this interview, and then I'm going to take that into future conversations. That was such a great analogy. You never fail chemotherapy. Your body either accepts it and does what you want it to, or it doesn't, but you can't control your body and what it does. Learning that your biology largely controls what's happening with weight gain and loss, and that it's not your fault. It's been so empowering for so many of us. Everybody's talking about how it's willpower. You have to have willpower. You have to eat less. You have to move more. You're just lazy, whatever. It's not their fault. That cannot be said enough.
It cannot be said enough. We could apply it to lots of things. I mean, your dialysis, you didn't fail your dialysis. We could keep going because, just to drive the point home, it's unique because certainly does lifestyle, I mean, here I am a dietitian. Does lifestyle and hydration and food and sleep quality and stress management, does that play a part? Yes. But with the whole picture. So it's a yes and so if we only put all the emphasis on food and we don't talk about sleep or stress or other weight promoting medications or all the different things, and we live in what's called an obesogenic environment. Our environment is covered in food. It kind of lends towards obesity. So we got to address it from every angle: food, environment, dynamics, but also, I mean, even getting movement. If you've got any physical issues in your body, we've got to figure that out before we can increase your movement.
I am freelance writing for this GLP-1 blog platform, and they just had me do this article on the full history of GLP-1s. And my favorite part was writing and researching about the different things that affect weight.
Yeah.
Obesogens, chemicals, family history, environment in the womb. I
Right.
mean, you can have insulin resistance before you take your first bite of food. There are so many more things that go into your weight.
This is like a new textbook for dietitians. It doesn't have to be just dietitians. Health Professionals Guide to Treatment of, and look how huge this is, right? Like, and this is tiny text. If in 2025, I still have to read a textbook of this size to treat someone with obesity, then I think there's more to it, right? Like if I haven't, so speaking of long letters that you don't know what they mean, there's an additional certification. You don't have to be a dietitian to get it, but there's additional certification that some health professionals can get called CSOWM. It's like the see, I don't even know what all it stands for, but it's like a certified obesity medicine specialist, different than a board certified obesity medicine doctor, which is what Dr. Ogle is. But this is CSOWM, way too many letters. For things like this. So if I have to read a giant textbook and take an additional board to be a dietitian specialized in obesity, then it's not about calories. It just isn't.
No. Don't you know it's so simple? It's just calories in and calories out.
Yeah, I would not have a job if that was true.
You open the book and that's all it says. It's just a bunch of blank pages.
If this were as easy as we think it would be, I wouldn't be employed. Nobody would need me.
Your role is only going to become more necessary as more people get on these medications, as more people find that they need different types of treatments, like we were saying, with maybe mixing medications or mixing surgery. That story of my family member kind of proves the importance of having that support network.
And then exactly, and pairing that with counseling, the motivational interviewing, you know what? If I mentioned Medicare only covering dietitians if you have diabetes or end-stage renal disease, but a lot of private insurance does pay for dietitians. So I want to make that clear to anyone listening. If you have a private insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, United, you can call and say, do I have medical nutrition therapy benefits? And the code is 97802. And oftentimes it is with preventative care covered at unlimited visits, no out-of-pocket costs. So you may very well have access to a dietitian at no cost right now. Worth finding out. Because that's medical nutrition therapy has that key word in there, therapy. Like we do want to talk about symptoms, medications. You know, this is the nitty-gritty science stuff. But the therapy part is that motivational interviewing and how to really make it work in your life, with your family, in your household, with all the things on your plate, and really connect it all kind of full circle back to like, I can understand this stuff, but how do I really translate it to the here and the now? So I want to put that out there. You might have benefits right now.
I am so grateful for you for sharing that information because that is largely tied to self-advocacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to stand up for ourselves. We have to do the research. No one is going to do it for us. I truly believe it has the power to change the world. When you advocate for yourself, you're advocating for every single one of us. And we're teaching our children how to advocate for themselves by proxy. We don't even have to educate them if they can see us standing up for ourselves.
Yes.
And the confidence that that instills and
Right.
the empowerment, it does nothing but good.
Preach.
Do you know if you can try to get a prior authorization through your doctor for a dietitian?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with dietitians, this is something that, so typically, like if a private practice dietitian is like, we accept insurance, they may also say, they may check your benefits for you and say, we have someone that does that. Sometimes if it's a smaller office and they don't have the staff to do that, they may say, here's a script to call your insurance and call them and ask. Oh, it'll take you 5 minutes, which is true. It doesn't take long. The good news about dietitians is that we really don't have that many codes. We have basically two. Is it a new appointment or a follow-up appointment? Like that's really it. Compare that to, a physician or other practices that have tons of codes. You have to ask all these questions, all these clearances. So it's a relatively easy check because it's like you have it or you don't. does this code get covered? And I like commonly every plan is different, especially if you're insured through an employer, then they have bought their plan. So it's different for everybody. But a lot of times we see Blue Cross Blue Shield and United cover dietitian visits with no copay. And it's covered, and a lot of times with no extra visits. And you don't have to have pre-existing conditions. A lot of times it's under preventative care. And I've seen with Aetna, everybody tends to get 10 visits covered. And then if you have an additional diagnosis like obesity, then you can get up to 26 a year. So all that to say, I think it is a quick phone call and you can get clarity. The worst case scenario would be that the dietitian will say, okay, we're going to run this through your insurance. This is how much our cash pay is. If your insurance doesn't pay for it, then you would have to be on the hook for that. But if you've called and gotten the information in advance, you would know going into it if you're going to get covered.
A lot of people didn't even know what a prior authorization was until insurance companies started denying GLP-1 care. And now there are guides and applications and people in social media giving advice and doctors hustling to get these prior auths taken care of, which oftentimes, unfortunately, they don't go anywhere.
Right.
But sometimes they do. And it's always worth trying everything that you can, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, this is not as intensive as that quick phone call to know where you're at. But yeah, all that. I have conversations. I had a conversation with the patient earlier that had lost her access to GLP-1, and then she had a sleep apnea diagnosis. So she was able to go back to her provider and they got a prior auth and they got it covered because of the sleep apnea. But isn't that a shame to think you have to get more sick to get the medication you need?
Don't get me started. I work with someone who just said that they got a GLP-1 because they have type 2 diabetes. And I'm like, it's crazy to say this, but congratulations.
Yeah, right. Totally. Oh, I've said that like in somebody's bariatric surgery post-op follow-up. I'm like, well, congratulations, because it is exciting.
It is exciting. They were very happy about it. I mean, it's worth celebrating that they're finally getting the care that they need.
Right.
But it is sad that we have to congratulate someone for having a new diagnosis before they can get care.
Yes.
So I want to see this book and I want you to tell me about how it can help people.
Sure. So this is my cookbook. This is called Best Fort Forward. So my quick background. So I started working as a bariatric surgery dietitian in 2009. And I loved it so much that I just wanted to be able to do more. So I would see patients all day long, and then I would go home. I wasn't married yet, didn't have kids yet, so I had extra time. I would go home and I would make dinner because I mentioned my own weight loss journey. So I was, seeing patients all day long, and then I was doing it myself. So I saw my own weight management improve. And then I started taking pictures of dinner, and I put dinner pictures. At first, it started as my Facebook page. Before Facebook pages were a thing, it was just my personal Facebook profile. So I still have patients of mine from 15 years ago or Facebook friends of mine because of this, that I would say like, hey, this is what I'm cooking for dinner. Because usually in these like visits, we didn't have time to get to the practical. It was more like, are you getting protein in? Are you vitamins? So, but the whole but what's for dinner? It felt like we didn't even get to that part. So I started putting it online, and then that turned into a website. Fast forward now, bariatricfoodcoach.com is my website, and it has almost 700 recipes now. I have a video course on what to eat on a GLP-1, workbooks. I have a membership for bariatric surgery patients that has an engaging community, and we do guest speakers and fun activities and things like that. But I also wanted to have a physical cookbook. So this is 60 recipes. I like that they all have their own photo. That's something that I really like about cookbooks.
Yes, you have to have a photo in cookbooks. You have to.
Exactly.
And these are all yours.
They're like 30 minutes and less, but they're focused on protein, vegetables for your fiber. So again, bariatric nutrition is still GLP-1 nutrition, because at the end of the day, bariatric means weight loss. So it still all connects. It's just healthy eating to get your protein and fiber in.
That is so impressive.
Thank you.
I do not want to buy a cookbook that does not have a picture of every recipe, or at the very least, a picture on every page. The picture really sells it.
Yeah, I don't want to see just words. Yeah,
These are
totally.
things you've actually cooked for yourself, and these are
Yeah,
your pictures that you took.
they are. Yeah, I mean, some of these, like, I'm just crouching down on the floor in front of my window to try to get some natural lighting. I think, honestly, this was, in 2013, food blogging was kind of the thing. So I think I bought like a Groupon for a food photography course so I could learn how to make my pictures a little better.
Cool. What a neat
I
idea.
still wouldn't say I'm a professional, but I can at least take a picture of some chicken.
I like that they're 30 minutes or less because my whole thing is it has to be fast and it has to be cheap. I've got 3 kids and I'm on a GLP-1. In this economy, we can't afford to go with bougie stuff anymore.
1,000%. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
of
what
course,
they're meant to be like. Yeah, same thing. Like if I see a recipe and it has like 10, 15 ingredients, my eyes glaze over. Like I can't even if half of them are seasonings, I'm still like, I can't. So it needs to be like, okay, I have all that in my pantry, or I can go grab, the canned tomatoes and chicken. I do have a handout on my website. I'll try to find the link to send it to you because it's one of those freebie kind of handouts on tips for saving money, grocery shopping, which
nice.
is really at the end of the day is all about reducing food waste. If you can stretch your food and use it instead of having to toss it, that's the best way to save money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that I can definitely see the value of that book for anyone on a GLP-1 as well as the surgery because like you said, we need protein and we need fiber. These are the 2 most important things. So, I want that book and I want to share it with anyone who's looking for recipes so that they can nourish themselves appropriately.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's Best Fork Forward by Steph Wagner. Or if you prefer digital, bariatricfoodcoach.com. I have a membership for bariatric surgery, or if you just want the recipes, there's a lower tiered membership for recipe access only.
With 700 recipes, I think that we're going to be set. We're going to have enough
Yeah,
ideas for
right.
what's for dinner.
Exactly. Yeah, and actually it's in the works. I've been working on it, but I also have a new like AI chatbot on the site so that you can ask for a specific recipe. So you can ask like, I need 4 nights of recipes and I have chicken, beef, and shrimp at home or whatever. It's, just like anything technology, it's been a little clunky, but it's getting better to where it can retrieve recipes only from my website instead of sending you somewhere else. So that's because it can be really overwhelming, like 700 recipes. I don't have time for that. Like I don't have time to go scroll through all that. So that's been my latest project is trying to leverage AI to make even finding resources on my own site faster.
That is amazing. I love the idea that I could plug in what I have and just say, give me something. Because again, it comes down to time. 30 minutes or less, baby. We don't have time to be searching recipes. So before I let you go, this is going to be out of left field, but I have to know what your tips are for staying hydrated because it's a real issue. I mean, I have to have a Fitbit tell me when it's time to drink water, or I will literally just drink coffee and then it's 5 o'clock at night. I'm like, why do I feel sluggish and gross? I haven't had any water yet.
A common tip that comes up consistently is the visibility rule. Like it has to be in your peripheral. It has to be visible. Exactly. I would even say, Amanda, flip it open, keep it open. Yeah. I know it's so
Okay.
silly. Let me know if this works, but if you keep it down versus keeping it up, I mean, our brains are so lazy that we are more likely to drink water if all we have to do is lift and drink than if we have to open a straw, lift and drink. I mean, some of these things are silly, but you can kind of test it. This is from Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's the idea of make it obvious, make it easy, make it satisfying. I think there's one more. Easy, obvious, satisfying, something else like that. So I think water is a great one that you can apply that to. Like it has to be easy, has to be satisfying. So if you don't like plain water, then you need to buy cucumber and mint and lemon and lime or whatever. Or I've even, I like doTERRA essential oils and 1 drop of tangerine essential oil. doTERRA is food grade. I don't know that all essential oils are, but doTERRA is drop of essential oil. If you like the different flavorings or hint water. So make it satisfying, make it something you like, herbal tea, but you have to make it visible. You have to make it easy. So that would be my tip is a lot of times people get behind on water because it's out of reach or they forgot their cup. They didn't have enough ice. So how do we make it satisfying, easy, visible?
I know a little bit about the Atomic Habits book, and what I do know, I highly respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go read that one next.
Yeah, it's an easy read. I think that's one that for anyone listening, if you haven't, it's worth, checking it out from your library or getting the Audible. It's taking really nerdy, deep research about habit change and making it something the rest of us can understand.
We need to make it easy.
Make it easy.
But I'm guessing that that's a lot less expensive because it's just a drop, right?
Right, compared to trying to keep fresh produce on hand all the time.
Even liquid IV is so expensive. It's like $21 for 8 packs or something like that. So the idea of buying like a little tiny vial of essential oils sounds beneficial. Where do you get that from?
doTERRA is the name of the brand. If you use any other oils, just double check that it's food grade, meaning you can consume it. So doTERRA, DOTERRA, is a brand of essential oils that I do know that is food grade. They have tons of different kinds that you can diffuse and do all things, but I get the tangerine. They do have a line. They have some of these like citrus ones. So if you do like a little drop of flavor or something citrus, it does taste really fresh. You might get like this little bottle and it might be like $15, $18, but will last so long because you're just doing 1 drop for a whole bottle. So yeah, there may be other oils out there that are food grade, but that's what I would double check.
Okay, well, I'm going to go buy some.
Okay.
This entire interview has been really fun and super educational. I am so grateful that you came on.
Thanks so much for having me. Anytime. I love it. This is definitely the place to talk about all these things. I'm here for it.
Thank you for sticking around to the end. I am super stoked to share that I'm going to be giving a public speech for the Bariatric Food Coach community. The link will be in the show notes. Visit glp1studio.com to check out the calendar and see what community events are available that you can get involved in. As always, I appreciate the support. Thank you for listening, sharing, subscribing, liking. You know all the buttons. You are the best. This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider before making any changes to your medication or treatment plan. I founded both the GLP-1 Studio and the GLP-1 Collective. They are separate entities with separate funding. Opinions expressed by me or any guest on this podcast are our own and do not represent the GLP-1 Studio. I am not compensated by, sponsored by, or affiliated with any pharmaceutical company, telehealth clinic, or compounding pharmacy. This episode may contain affiliate links. Any such links are disclosed within the episode. When you advocate for yourself, you advocate for all of us.
Prepare to be empowered.